freeze my bollocks off here, pal.
Okay, that's a good opening line for the recording.
We still going, damn it.
Yeah, it's too annoying we'll live with it. I'm sure we're all adults here. I mean, we said it as...
Remember not to swear when recording.
Or at all, really, but that's sort of up to you. I don't know what that translation... I mean, what was that word?
I don't know.
What a bit of...
It was my hand controller for the Quest. It was lying on the function key, so it's been sitting waiting all night.
All night, oh, right.
For me to say something. And I walk in the dark, fall over, swear, translates it to that, and I don't know why it sent it. Probably because of my mistake. Anyway, that's what it translated to.
Okay. Man, we had a rough day today. GPT was offline for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't know what to do with themselves, including me.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
Suddenly left me feeling like I was...
power cut. It's like having a power cut, right?
Worse, it's like driving on a very far away road and then hitting a massive pothole and your car breaks down and you're like, I'm in trouble.
And also the one thing, this is quite amusing. If you want to bring up the screenshot they sent over, which I went and had a look at as well, it's like you're an OpenAI company that has just released one of the best models, and the best you can do is we're looking into it twice.
Well, they didn't have their AI, right? Like when they go
have an AI where you could say, right, okay, can I ask questions about your incident? Because incidents matter, and they do happen, of course. But at very least, put an AI up.
The AI went offline, though. The AI went offline. You can't expect the AI to be online to answer the incident queries when the incident was about the AI.
No. I disagree with that. Because when was the last time Google had an outage? How many times?
Oh, pretty recently.
Life?
And I've actually never experienced Google down. Not once.
Yeah. So OpenAI, you need to up your game here, guys. There are ways to do this. At the very least, give us an AI to talk to when you've got an outage. So
okay,
we're not feeling so useless.
I mean, a friend of mine even went and started using the built-in WhatsApp AI. He was that lost for...
Ooh.
Yeah, no. So, anyway, where are we at? Well, I have lost a little bit of time today, but the key thrust of what I've been working on was how to get the bot to code.
Okay.
And I made a couple of things here, and then I took on board what you mentioned about how concat should really be a nap, and then I started bringing all the naps in to the big old naps folder, because what I realized is that this has helped me think about how to run naps on the command line, because I can make a very small nap that is like the CLI that turns any nap into a CLI. And so what I'll do...
Oh, that's a really cool idea, because then it's a small step, for example, to make a bash script.
Yeah, or anything, right? And then
like snaps.
Yeah. And so right now we've got this concat command, but what I'll change it to is to be like naps, and then you'll go naps concat, or naps web scrape, naps transcribe, naps YouTube, and all the naps are now available as a CLI command for you in the interim.
Yeah. But no, what you said before though is really if you have like a bootstrap nap, then you can talk to it in natural language, saying, right, can you concact all the readmes in this folder?
Right. You mean even for doing operations on your local machine? Yeah. So I realized that the mental model for running a nap on your local machine is just the actual file system, and then if you have Git, the version history is the actual Git, And
Yeah.
that's the same mental model, and it really helps simplify things in my mind of how that's going to work for the cloud-based Git file system of Artifact, where
Huh.
you can have these multiple concurrent independent branches of the file system. And it had sort of stumped me for a little bit, but now I'm like, oh, actually that's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And then I can test the naps using the local disk because, you know, no
Oh,
one cares.
glad to be of service.
Yeah.
That was a throwaway comment, really. It was like uh, it was a bit of an irritation, but it wasn't a stopper.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
it's
so
interesting.
what I made today was I made, first of all, I extended concat so that right now, when you call concat, provided you do the install for the latest version,
Mm-hmm.
from that version on, it will check for an upgrade and it will tell you if there's been an upgraded version.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Brilliant. I've got yeah, in that long screed that I sent over, there's one of the comments about exactly this.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you were asking me how to the the place we got to get to is that your programs should all upgrade automatically, but under your control. So you're like, you know how like on your phone you have auto update and blah blah blah, like
Right.
that's how it
Yeah.
should all be for
Yeah.
software modules as well.
Yeah. But that then begs the evals question. Say when you get the do you want to install the next iOS? I go, I don't know. Do I? I've no idea what
Yeah,
iOS
so
will do.
that calls on a deeper problem, which is when you say what's changed, we need to have kept in memory somewhere what your idea of what of last was.
Which points to kind of everyone has a personal fork of the NAP
Well,
on the
you've
version.
always no, you've always got your own home directory, and your home directory stores little bits of memory about you, I think, or about stuff that you've been chatting about. So
Yeah,
it's a little fuzzy
yeah,
to me how that works, but I think it's actually not as, on the one hand, it's not as complicated as it may seem on the outset, but it's also really fiddly to get right, I think.
yeah, yeah. And it might be too much of an ask, but if, for example, my phone knew my usage and said, "Do you want to upgrade?" And go, "I don't know. Do I? Tell me." It says, "Oh, okay, right. I've checked your usage over the last 6 months, and you're not going to be able to do this anymore. This has changed." Uh, oh, yep,
Yeah,
that's
right.
changed
Like
as
things
well.
that matter
So,
to you, it should be able to tell you. It's like, well, I upgraded the phone and pretended to be you the same way that you've been for the past few months, and I had a couple problems that I couldn't get
yeah,
around, so maybe
yeah.
don't upgrade.
So there's kind of in any kind of major upgrade. iOS is a great example. It's take it or leave it. But some might be a retrograde, as in you've lost stuff that you actually really liked, and some you haven't actually thought of that are prograde that you're thinking, oh, actually, that would be really cool. And then I'm using these naps. What additional facilities do these naps call on these upgrades that I don't think about?
Hmm. Yeah, so
Um,
that's
anyway,
definitely an issue, but it's a more advanced feature.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
it would be, but yes. So tell me about the concat
so concat
upgrade
now,
then.
runs just runs a version check, and then it will suggest to you. Now, the interesting technique that I want to talk about here is to be able to make that call.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to add in uh, this little snippet here.
Check for new version. Okay.
Now I just migrated this whole folder over to this. Actually, it's probably not really doing. Yeah, I moved this whole folder. That's why all the errors and stuff are there.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't there in the published version. But basically, again, I wrote no code, and I just prompted using the previous concat.
Mhm.
And this new tactic that I've got is a folder called vendor docs, because in order
Okay.
to check the version, it needed to make a URL, it needed to do a fetch call to an API to figure out what the latest version was and then compare it. And so vendor docs is where I've sort of said, well, the API of this website, and I just copied this from the GitHub of the vendor of the API. So,
Yeah.
and then I added that in the concat file and was like, here's how you call that API. And that was enough for it to, I think on the first hit, actually, it wrote this thing
That's
first,
remarkable.
first go, and now it's got a version checker. It's a very
So,
simple thing,
so basically,
but
just before I went to sleep, I knocked out that text message,
yeah.
and here it is.
What do you mean you knocked out that text message?
The text message when I was talking about wouldn't it be cool for Concat to be version aware.
When did you say that?
I said that last night. I
No,
thought that's what kicked this. This is what kicked this off, right?
no, nowhere do you say that, sir.
If you go further up, further up, further up. Last night, what was I saying? On this side.
Dark day. You had some issues with messages.
Uh, wait a second. Good. Yeah. Okay.
Does it matter? I guess is the thing. Like,
It kind of doesn't. Except I thought that's what.
what don't
Made
I
that
leave?
change with.
I'll leave you to make a note of what happened. You might have lost a message somewhere, or you just thought it and didn't write it down, because that's, so that's yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll dig it out.
Okay.
WhatsApp's not a great way of
Nah.
blurring
So
notes.
just to jump around a bit, because that's how we like to roll. I went and I still wonder about this ongoing ingestion process of ours. And so I made this folder ingestions, and then I made a folder that was sort of the topic, and then I ingested your texts so that I can chat about them,
Okay.
right? And so,
Yeah.
but the thing that I was trying to get going was a tool, and I want to talk to you about this tool, because me spending time on tools, it ain't good if we don't need them, right? Or if it doesn't help some understanding.
Yeah.
Benefits I'm getting right now from building any kind of tool is learning how to prompt o1-pro to generate meaningful code and patches being more important than blank slate code. Trying out different techniques and things there. Learning how the naps interface work on the file system, very useful, very insightful. So this last tool that I want to make is the tool of saying that if I share a link, then what I want to do, I was trying to make a little nap that you give it the shared link, and it will download the chat into the ingestion folder,
That
because
would be really,
because
really
because
helpful,
those chats are actually quite valuable, and it
yeah.
and the sort of the esoteric problem is to say that if I made the code without coding, then what's the new source code, right? You need to see the prompts that I used, and you need to see the output and all that, right?
Yeah.
That's the source code now, because that's what
Yeah.
made the code.
There's, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
You were just agreeing, right? You didn't
Yeah.
have a question or something.
No.
No.
I was well. Actually, I was going to have a follow on. in that yesterday you asked a question, which I suspect prompted this. When I was saying o1-pro seems to be really good at writing prompts,
Yeah,
and
that
you
didn't.
asked, and what was the thread? And it took me like 10, 15 minutes to, because it was multiple threads. It was like,
Yeah,
because
yeah. And then you sort of start to end up like when you write the module, you sort of end up with a little prompt that's custom made for that task that you refine, and it gets quite good. And
okay,
that's actually the new source code. It's like the seed code, or the seed of the that was given to the model to produce the code is very important. And so
yes, yes,
being able to
I agree.
capture that is good. Being able to capture what the git snapshot or what the concatenation output was that was given to the model, like what context did the model get, plus the prompt equals the code, even,
Yeah.
like, so all those things, right? So I generated some words about that, but basically it sounds like you're saying that that's a good tool to have.
Yes, and I think it's a collab tool, right? Because I could just like save off the end result of
Yeah,
wandering
it's just
around
that the
prompt.
danger is that these tools are only here whilst o1 doesn't have an API and whilst we don't have our platform. But I guess because it's such a light tool to make, I will persist with it. I guess, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool.
It's
Yeah,
just text, isn't it? I mean, and drill down is a thing, but
yeah. Because these things are remarkably easy to make now that I got o1-pro. It's just that this one didn't. I was like, oh, that sounds like half an hour, but it
mhm.
turns out it wasn't because I kept hitting a
Yeah, you sent that over. What's
yeah.
the background on that?
It turned out that when you view the shared chat, the
Hmm.
data that's being shared from o1-pro includes it actually includes the background reasoning. And what
Hmm.
I'd done is in my instructions to the model, I was saying, okay, the AI assistant is named Pro. The
Hmm.
assistant's responses include hidden reasoning steps before the final answer, because in the first versions of the code I ran, it was sort of intermingling or getting confused between the reasoning text and the assistant's true response. And so
Okay,
I said that I
that's
wanted
interesting.
it to include the hidden reasoning, and it turns out that that's forbidden because they're trying to protect people from figuring out what's happening behind the scenes in the reasoning.
The verboten. That's a shame.
No, but it's not like I don't think in any way I'm violating terms of service here. It's just triggered the moderation falsely because that information, that data is available to you when you share a link publicly. A person doesn't have to have a GPT account. They don't have to have anything. You can get this link and you view it and you can see
Hmm.
the hidden the conversation.
Hmm.
So that's not. It's just that what's interesting is I've obviously clamped down super hard on people trying to jailbreak or get the model to dump its reasoning. So like
Yeah, yeah.
like
Okay,
this is
that kind of makes sense from their point of view,
so
isn't it?
looking at it from an incognito window, this is what you would see, and then it's got that's all I was trying to do is just store that data too.
Mm.
So it's all like that's part of the public exposed data when you make a public shared link. And I think I'm doing them a favor because the other way I could get at our own chats is to export the whole thing as a PDF,
Mm.
which puts a lot of load on their servers, and then extract the chat I want. But if I do it this way, make a public link and then just read the public link and store the data, like I'm sort of being very light touch on their servers to get something that
Um, I don't know. My guess is giving these guys ours. smart. Probably what they've done is they started with the a kind of the minimum or the most clamped down, and then we'll expand it
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. It's interesting
Um,
that they protect that so hard. Like that's the absolute that's the hardcore thing that they're guarding.
hmm.
How the reasoning happens. Um, so I'll go ahead and make that tool. I think I know how to do it without tripping that overzealous moderation. Um, and then what that means is you'll have the ingestion of things like WhatsApp chats, the transcriptions of stuff, but then also good, worthwhile conversations. Like for example, the blockchain of thought. That was a discussion that Ben and I had, and then I used some prompting to have a chat with o1 about it, and I found o1pro's response extremely useful. But then I have to go and reason it through the domains, like
Yes,
right. So you've
which you can do
just
through cursor. You know, you say
yeah,
yeah,
well, yeah.
one
I
of
mean, I'd prefer
so
to use o1pro, but the thing is that it
yeah,
the chat becomes now an ingestion because it's not. It brings in novel information too. So that's
yeah,
what I'm getting at too, right? So I think you sound like you're in agreement that
yeah, yeah. I'm getting the same experience.
right. Chats
Um,
chats are reference data or original source data that you
yeah,
need to ingest and then
yeah,
reconcile across the reasoning domains,
right.
basically.
The thing that struck me with the concat when I was using it is derivative in that we're taking the whole thing and then you can summarize it and you can get derivative of derivative. But what would be great is to be able to drill down if there's part of a summary of course, set of definitions, and you're saying, well, why are you saying that? It would be great to be able to go back to the original file and saying that's well, it's because of this, and the interaction is that.
Oh, you mean like for it to be able to give you references to why it thinks a certain way?
Yeah, yeah, and they should be
Hmm.
able to.
All right.
And in
Well, I
fact,
mean, yeah. So long as you provided all that stuff to it,
yeah,
yeah. Okay. And the other thing I made, which is in preparation for, I had a friend of mine who's got, he's been through a lengthy court process for the past year and a half, taking on an insurance company, and
well, you can always 3D print a pistol with a silencer, I suppose. So,
or you could or you could take some of the very lengthy documents and run them through Pro. And so he's going to send me a couple of examples where he's sort of written a brief for his lawyer and attached some PDF documents for it and asked some questions. And I want to use that to see how well o1-pro does on going through all that sort of thing.
well, that's I've done in the recent few days. Well, when was it? 2 days ago. Um, our good friend Marla asked me to help her with Pro in producing a service level agreement for a mentorship uh, contract, and it was remarkably precise.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But the thing that you need to make Concat work with PDFs is a PDF
Mm-hmm.
reader. And so again, using the techniques that I've been playing around with today, I made this module. I would guess it maybe took me maybe an hour to 2 hours. No, kind of like an hour and a half worth of prompting, but the time was mostly because I was experimenting and I was doing other things as well and all that. But anyway, here's some way. That's not right. Sorry, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
Spelled the thing.
Demo task run. All right. Okay. So this is
Yeah, and now that
still local
runs.
code. This is still local code, is it?
Yeah, and it ran and it generated this JSON file out of the example PDF,
Hey.
pulls in all the metadata about it, pages with links and all that. So That's if you want like everything about the PDF, which includes like information about the locations of things, so you can sort of reason about the layout of the
Yeah.
page. But
Yeah. Okay.
I also got it to, again, using prompting, add this extra switch dash dash text, which now takes the PDF and writes PDF.text. It puts in the
Oh.
metadata, and then it reads in all the text, and then it splits it by page, but it still just gives you the text. And so what you should be able to do is, when you run concat, if it comes across a PDF, it should be able to go turn that into
Right.
text, and now
And
you're,
then reason about it.
yeah. And so when my buddy sends me these PDF documents, this is how I'll turn them into something that I can give to o1-pro, because even though o1-pro has the attach files button, it attaches it and then chunks it. It doesn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, it's not the full window. It's like, I want everything
Yeah.
in context.
So that is super cool, and actually, I could use that myself. But what I'm really interested in is your thoughts about this process, which you said took an hour and a
Yeah,
half, whatever, to generate this.
yeah.
That process. How are you feeling about that? Or more importantly, actually, more precisely, is there anything that in those steps feels like a cut and paste or a manual step? Because the
Oh,
manual
there's a
steps,
lot of cut and paste and a lot of manual stuff. But once we get API access to o1-pro,
yeah,
what's going to happen is there's going to be a range of prompts that are the prompts that are like a preset prompt. Like, if I want to make a CLI, there are a set of rules that I'd put in the prompt, like what library I want to choose to use to do the interpretation of the command line parameters.
mm-hmm.
Um, what um, what library do I want to use for example, doing PDF extraction? There's a bunch of like repeated repeated sentences that I find myself using in these prompts. And so
Uh-huh.
it's almost like there needs to be a way to like mix and match the prompts. Now, I know that we had a bit of a dust up over that mixing and matching of prompts thing in the past, but
I've chilled since then.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I think that in this case, because you're planning to interact with the system, you're not like needing it to run as a CRM or something. You're actually in the creative area, that inserting these different prompts, because you're going to regenerate the prompt over and over and over until you settle on something where you're effectively human evaling it in a way.
yeah.
That sort of, I think that would be useful to be able to bring in chunks of preset prompt that people have found useful.
I think that'd be brilliant. I mean, essentially, that's like well, it's similar to natural language bash script. It's like,
Yeah.
um, and what you don't want to do is to have to go through that human eval from
No,
third
no.
page each
Yeah,
time.
so I think what's going to happen is that we're going to end up with the ability to have o1-pro be the evaluator of the code that it generated. And so as a human, you'd say what you wanted, and then o1 would have a shot at it, and then o1 would run it, and then o1 would sort of consider maybe what it should be, and then do a few more loops before getting back to you as the human.
Yeah,
Um, but I can't see it going like it. What is it more than that? I mean, if I can get working code where honestly I didn't like, I made one or two edits, but they were cursor assisted and they were very minor. So what does that mean for the industry of code creating? It's like, well, I can only do that because I understand the code and I can skim it as well as read it and deeply, and I can pick architectural changes to make. Like, I want to use a different library to do this thing. That's a big change to introduce, but in terms of rate of code, I mean, this is like the future. So the vendor doc strategy, I applied a bit differently here. That turns out you sort of got to do it a little bit bespoke for each library. Like for example, in this particular module, I had to pull in the whole source file because they didn't have an easily accessible document about it. They had documented their code by making it be well documented in the comments.
Okay.
And so I had to bring the whole file in. Whereas this module had a README file. And so, like, this was how I told it about all the options that I was going to make it support, right? Like, it can support page ranges, password. You know, it's like with a little bit of poking, you can get some very useful code that I don't even really know how to describe it. It's like,
isn't the poking just if you were to have the context of the types of preferences for libraries, and in this situation I did this, in this situation I did this in the past, just do it.
If that was if so that would make it almost one shot. Moreover, there's a social network opportunity where me and my friends can have or publish or expose the modules and libraries that we've found good, coupled with the prompts that we found work those libraries in well. And so there'll probably be an adjustment period where published libraries sort of balance how to make their instructions be LLM consumable.
It feels like that, doesn't it?
But that is definitely an aspect of social behavior that we can try to leverage somehow.
There'll be some convergence, won't there? Because convergence, given the pressure that using NL is so powerful, NL being dynamic in its own right, it's going to be a bit wiggly to start with, but eventually it's gonna get.
It's gonna settle. Yeah, it's gonna settle. Yeah. So that's definitely the future. And this is just o1-pro. Like 1 year ago, we had GPT-4, and we thought that was fun. In 1 more year, what will we have? So the trend is clear. Like, coding's over, and even these modules that I'm making, I'm like, I'm not sure they're so tiny. Like, what's the point of big code bases anymore?
Well, here's a challenge to that. Well, not a challenge, but here's an interesting question. How wrong would it be if inside of an NL prompt you say, read this PDF, and there's no tool for reading PDFs, and it simply goes off and reads the tool, or creates the tool, and then uses the tool, and then discards the tool?
Yeah, that'd be fine, but I just wonder if there's a finite number of tools that you ever need, like, and from there on in, it's just if you have the NAP format. Like, the only reason I had to write the code is because the NAP format's not there. If they were already modules that were formatted as NAPs, I wouldn't have to. They would compose well, I think.
Yeah.
That's really the problem. Is that,
and also, just to edit what I just previously said, you don't need to discard it. What you need to do is, if it upgrades, you need to know whether you've actually gone retrograde or prograde as a user. And it's like, now I've got, I mean, basically, just-in-time code. Just-in-time code.
So basically, I'm seeing that the NAP format means that my chance of one-shot generation are very, very strong if we have the NAP format. But without the NAP format, I still got to point it at the docs and then do a little bit of integration work to make the code sort of, fit it.
Yeah.
But
You're in a
naps
similar
don't have that
situation.
issue. Naps don't have that issue.
You're in a similar situation when I was back when I had V5 and 4, when I was kind of an AI in the loop, and you're still an AI in the loop.
Yeah. We'll get out of this soon. The other stuff I wanted to show you was when I paused the chat that I had with Ben, which I was trying to save to disk, but I ran out of time today. The ideas that it put forwards from something that we weren't able to outright say, we were just able to sort of grasp at it and poke at it around the edges, and I thought it came out with some really good concepts. So it says, thinking of Git as infrastructure hiding behind the scenes, imagine it as actual mind space of an AI. Commits become thoughts, branches become possible worlds, and merges become negotiated alignments of reality.
Oh, that's nice.
That's quite good. This would mean that interacting with systems wouldn't require separately building APIs or wrapping logic in adapters. The thought process would already be in the universal language of code and data tracked by Git.
Yeah.
Now,
what he said. Yeah.
What he said, right? Like what the $200 US a month bot said, right? But then to reverse reason that, I asked it to compare what it's doing against another blockchain.
Yeah, okay. How did it come out?
The types of questions that it asked, I think, were the most stunning. So one of them was really good. Here we go. Can the chain's artifacts be directly consumed by standard developer tools, continuous integration or continuous deployment pipelines, model registries, or container registries without translation? And so it's basically saying, like, is your blockchain format able to interop with the existing software ecosystem without a translation layer where you'll lose provenance, signatures, time, cost, all that?
That is... Why didn't we think of that? It's loss of provenance.
The loss of provenance, yeah. And so there were some other good things as well. Here, can we trace not just the code, but also the discussions, proposals, and decision-making processes that led to a given state?
I've been talking about that. Oh, that's what I've been saying.
Well, not as nicely as that, you haven't been saying it.
Not as succinctly. No. It took me about 20 minutes.
Now, this was a good one. Are consensus and network security achievable without relying on a native token's economic incentives? And so what that helped me see is that actually...
consensus... give me a second. Pause.
Okay, all right.
Consensus and network security achievable without relying on a native token's economic incentive. Oh, fucking hell. Okay.
And so what that showed me was that all these existing chains, like when we want to compare ourselves to those blockchains, we need to consider the economic and social structures that are formed around them, where almost the majority of them have a token, and the token will not be moved. Like, you will get lynched from the token holders if you try to remove the token, change the token, or in any way alter the promise of future value that represented. And so, because we're saying that the wait. It said it really nicely at some point. I'm sorry for the pause. It will definitely be worth it.
Okay, standing by. Shatterproof of work. What's that?
Oh, that was where I was just suggesting the idea to it that be, proof of work need not be a single proof of work chain. You could do work in a branch, and then when you present it back or to other branches, you could demonstrate the amount of work that you've done as a sort of an offering of the sanity of the work, or the the meaningfulness of the work that you did on it.
Yeah. This is a bit of a hobby horse, but I don't know whether you asked in this thread um, how you'd incorporate or check against other chains for proof of work, which wasn't simple computational effort or ownership of something. For example, I've got a wheelbarrow. I'll wheel it 100 yards down the road, or I'll take my boat across a river.
Yep, yep. So there's all those kinds of other types of work that can be used. How easy is it to evolve the protocol over time, add new features, or adapt new technological standards without causing ecosystem turbulence? And so that token actually is like a death anchor. It's like a literally it will stop you from being able to evolve because of um the anchoring type of thing.
No, I don't get you. Sorry, could you reword that?
It seems that when we're comparing ourselves to other blockchains, their biggest
Mm-hmm.
fault is their token. The fact that they have a token at all
Because
means
of the
that
incentive mechanism.
well, it's a distorted one. Um, there really was a nice statement I was looking for here, but I've sort of missed it. This was the about the on-chain training data. Um, no, I'm sorry, buddy. I might have
Yeah, no worries. But the I think you've demonstrated a couple of things here. Um, uh, Now these we need a way of capturing these chains, these threads,
yeah,
because
that's what that download thing was supposed to be.
yeah, if we can do that, then we can kind of meta reason around these things on more than one person, right? This is your chain of thought, and it is fascinating. And if you don't mind sharing that to me, I'd love to go through that in detail. Um, but then I would also a week from now, because uh, because AI generates so much detail so quickly.
Yeah, that's the issue,
A week
right?
from now, you'll forget it.
Yeah, that's why we need to
Um,
be able to commit it into Git and make sure that these nuggets, um,
yeah,
these
yeah.
nuggets are held on to. But yeah, so there was only like three token free blockchains that it could come up with. Um, really. So yeah,
Hmm. I don't have a clear answer, but I feel I hate to say feel. That word is very woolly, but I feel that what it's pointing to here is a deeper idea about incentives. Now, Dreamcatcher's got a clear, well, what we think is a clear incentive program, but then integration is the other topic which you're pointing on here, and um, that in itself is, we can, if there's something that doesn't have a translation layer that has incentives which can be reconciled, then any efforts at any point, including putting money in one, can be used in any other, or something like that. That's a really sorry, it's a really idea, but but if you can send me that over, that would be very useful. Or even better, if you could like commit that somewhere.
Commit it. Yeah, I'll commit it. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, yeah, we're not in nearly as bad a spot as I'd thought, but it actually means that we cannot launch with a token. The token needs to be contributions. That's the only currency of the whole system. It should be able to trade assets, and we can make like a pooled asset that's like a mixture of DAI and ETH and whatever, just to sort of make it intrinsically easy to transact. But the main issue with all these other chains is that their token is intimately linked to their consensus. So if we launch with token-free consensus, and it's kind of like a proof of useful work or proof of genuine computation or proof of trade, proof of something.
Proof of actually doing useful stuff.
Yeah, proof of capacity, proof of inference, proof of all those types of stuff. Then so long as the consensus mechanism is separate from the token, then we won't get the distortion. It was the distortion that was the main sort of thing I was trying to find for you here.
Actually, take your time, because I'm very interested in this. So if you need to take a couple of minutes to read through and find it, that's cool.
Yeah, I think I just did. Sorry. Token agnostic security. Unlike proof... what heading was this under? So this was a description on the proof of useful work thing. And it's saying that token agnostic security, unlike proof of stake or token based model, this system doesn't rely on internal currency for security. It uses the cost of computation and electricity as the barrier to rewriting history, thereby removing the unfairness or distortions introduced by a chain's native token. So that pretty squarely points the finger at the native token is actually at fault for hindering the expansion, the reach, for the system to approach perfection. The token holds it back because it naturally involves unfairness and it distorts the technological evolution.
Yeah, of course it does.
Of the system.
Of course it does.
Right, and that's why we can't have a token. But having, like, you could, as a thought experiment, imagine, what if there was no currency? What if there was just this big ass AI telling you what you're worth for everything you did? And then, you could chat with it and be like, hey, what's the best thing I should do today? And it'll tell you, and you're like, I'm going to go swim in the river instead. That's fine too. But it's like, when it comes, it's like barter managed by AI.
That's exactly the word I was about to say. I'm sure we discussed this at some point in the past.
Yeah, but barter. I mean, barter is the future, and everything really is barter. Money is just like a very common denominator in barter. That's why it gets treated differently. But we need to get to a system where the economic trade is handled or valued by an AI, because humans can't help themselves but be out for themselves or to feel wronged. Like, they always either overinflate or over victimize themselves. And so
hold on, you're onto something here. Pause. Sorry. So you're effectively minting the it's almost like a future right to your contribution, which inherently, because that contribution is only going to be assessed after the fact, as in,
The
was it any
impact's yeah, the
use?
impact's not clear until after the fact.
Right. But you've still got a history of contributions, which is a thing. And maybe someone wants to speculate and say, hey, how about you? I give you, I record a contribution to you in return for these contributions' future assessment of value through attribution going to me, then contribution is effectively the token. It's a strange kind of token, though.
It's a strange kind of token, right? It's genuine contribution. That's what the value is. That's the token. And
Yeah.
you can trade it, and you can even gift it. Like, I should be able to do some work and then gift some of that work to you, but
Sure. Yeah.
you don't know what the value of it is until the AI has some data. Like, the AI can
Yeah.
give you an estimate or an appraisal, but it's not going to be the actual figure until use starts to come of it. And
Yeah.
so the token isn't, it's like the token itself represents useful work too. It's like the work is the only, and you said that there's really no difference between a GPU and a human's hands in terms of
Mm-hmm.
useful work. And so if the token is a record of work, then that's all that they're,
Yes.
that's the whole, that's the whole
Yeah. Yeah.
system.
Yeah. And to about 8 minutes ago or so, you're saying that actually uh, tokens with their distorting effects um, actually are detrimental.
Yeah.
All we want is contribution
Yeah.
record.
And so it's proof of work. It's proof of work is the, give me just a second. I
Mm-hmm.
need to burn some reasoning. The proof of the work is the currency.
Yes.
Whereas in Bitcoin, the proof of the work secures the currency, and the behavior of the currency is somewhat independent from the work being done to secure the currency. In
Mm-hmm.
our system, the work itself, the useful work that happens and is done by either computer, beast, or man, or woman, or anything, that the proof that you did that work, that you made that contribution, that alone is, it's the natural value, it's the
Yes.
asset of the system,
Yes.
is the
That
work.
that is the core. I mean, when has any token ever paid out to the poor GPU which was sweating its bollocks off? That was the thing that was actually doing the work. Or let's say someone's really good at maths and is doing it by hand. Uh, Still
Not
contributed.
not quite with you on those examples. And to try and build on the GPU example, who
Mm-hmm.
ever paid for an orphaned Bitcoin block, even though the GPU that found it sweated like mad,
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
it's not about, obviously a GPU is owned by someone and the GPU itself can't really have a bank account, but the fact is that the currency being distinctly different from the work is the heart of the problem.
I absolutely agree.
And I think
Um,
that's what we can say about that. The token, the unfairness and the distortion that the token brings is because it's not direct. It's not
it's
direct work.
it's kind of obvious when you state it. Uh, okay, so we can clear on messaging, but I get you. It's
It's
kind of
obvious when you
obvious.
say it like that, eh? Like it.
It's like
So
what?
what's good
Yeah.
about that is that it's subtle, and it's extraordinarily easy to miss,
Hmm.
right? And so if you've got something that's quite profound, always true, and easy to miss, those are good things to really paddle hard for, because if you can land them, you know, they can be large. Like that's a sign of something large, right?
Yeah.
Massively obvious in hindsight, easy to
I think
miss.
I think we were dancing around this idea a couple of years ago.
I know, but it's only with o1-pro that it really does really nail it with the
Yeah,
linguistics. Like
that's
the
right.
words it says, you're like, I kind of feel like I said that, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I would never have been able to say what it said because it
But
just said it so cleanly. But
yeah,
without my help,
and
it would never have bothered to generate
uh,
those lines.
exactly. And leaving to one side the danger of confirmation bias, but I don't think o1-pro really does that. That's what the human does.
Yeah,
Um,
I know a good line when I see it, and it has laid down some really good lines. Do you want? I mean, you sound way more interested in this than I anticipated. I
I
hadn't really.
no, no, I'm absolutely fascinated
Do you want me
because
to read out some of the other
this.
perlers that landed from it?
Yes, please. The reason I'm so interested is in a really long-winded and stupidly, verbose way. This is kind of. It's just said what I've been trying to say, except that it's actually finished the thought. Where
Yeah, I know. It finished the thought.
I was about halfway there.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like,
I know.
um,
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
it's
Um,
somewhat embarrassing, and
it isn't. It isn't, buddy. I mean,
invigorating as
yeah.
well.
So it also helped me come up with a good comparator to run
Okay.
comparisons against other chains.
Okay. Oh, against now, what did you put into at the top of this thread? Did
The,
you
no,
put in previous reasoning?
this was generate. Oh, to start this thread, I'll show you in a
Yeah.
second. This prompt came from somewhere else that I can't find just now. My bad. Um, but this thread overall started from this is just a chat. This was my prompt.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm just saying, you know, here's a chat. We're poking at things, we don't understand them. Clarify our thinking. Be creative. Be bold. Be profound. And then
Shit on a shitty
and
start.
this was
Okay.
just sort of Ben and I chatting. We know that we didn't really nail what each other
Yeah,
was
but
saying.
you and I are the same. We
Yeah,
skirt around
but
problems.
we knew there was something there, but we were just painting, sort of, smudging in the dark, basically.
Yeah.
And this is all that was given to it to
And
generate
so, what it's done is basically that conversation. I'm guessing, not having read it,
yeah,
is all has a bunch of arrows pointing in relatively wonky areas, but
yeah.
on average, the
On
vector
average, that's the
is
thing. That's the thing,
that's what
right?
you're talking about.
And it's like it even
Man,
was a little bit sheepish. It's like these are just options, bold thought experiments, and profound reinterpretations of what you've discussed. Each tries to distill the underlying essence of what you're circling around.
oh
Right?
bloody hell,
Git
that's
as a cognitive substrate. Concept. Treat Git not just as a version control system, but as a universal medium for knowledge representation.
yeah,
A
yeah.
canonical substrate into which intelligence can think its outputs directly. The idea being that instead of thinking of Git as an infrastructure hiding behind the scenes, imagine it as the actual mind space where commits become thoughts, right? And this was all about Ben
This is
was
sorry. Go on,
Ben
go
was
on.
poking at this idea that instead of treating Git as like this side effect of other stuff that happened, if the AI was Git native, then the Git commits, instead of the Git being the result of the AI, the Git commits are the AI. And so it's almost like the repository can get up and talk.
Yes, and this kind of extends. You remember I was been banging on about all you really should need is text files with history and an LLM,
Right.
but it's just expressed it
It expressed it
in
really nicely,
a
but it
much
also
nicer way.
Ben was
But it's also
also poking at the idea that the way that you connect to the existing world is really important too. Like for it to be useful, you can't just make it in the wilderness. It needs to be able to come in and converse with the existing systems. And he was saying that if your blockchain, if your AI and your data was Git native, then you can interact with other Git like systems without an API or any kind of adapter in between. It's just
which was your
direct.
previous point.
Yeah, and being direct opens up a whole new world because it's a two-way thing. Direct
which
now you can
which
ingest directly.
aims at NL based apps. Yeah.
Yeah, and being able to ingest directly means that all the existing infrastructure in the world, of which there is a lot, like if we build this blockchain, we can just gobble that up because there's no translation. It's just the genuine, certified, signed, fingerprint, hashed Git commit history, and we're like, that's our native format. We
Yeah,
eat
but
that up.
also to go back 25 minutes or so when you're talking about having to go through, I can't remember what you called it, the vendor thing.
Yeah.
Um, the vendor doesn't even need to know about it. You just need to
No.
publish it,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then yeah,
That's right.
and
And
then
so
suddenly it's ingested.
yeah, yeah. So I was also thinking of when I sent you that flow flowvoice.ai link, which I think is wonderful, by the way. Like it does dictation exactly how I would imagine. But my
Oh,
frustration is that it is only on a Mac. And I messaged them and was like, guys, come on, man, I'm not on a Mac. I need this thing. Like this thing is great.
yeah, it is
And they were
good.
like,
It is
no,
very good.
sorry. And so then I was like, well, I'll tell you what. What if I built a web scraper to pull in the page with all the docs and
Oh.
the and right?
Oh man.
And I was like, if we just like
That
pull
is
in the
that's
product,
worth
because
that
that's
is
the
worth a
hard
TED
part.
talk. That's
That's
worth a TED talk.
that's hard. That's the hard part of this way of coding that I've been playing with. Admittedly, with
Yeah.
only small modules, but big modules are made of little modules after all. The
Yeah.
hard part is the README or the requirements or the seed. The like, what does it do? How does it go about it? All those things. And so, if I can just haul in whole other products, what does that what does that mean?
Oh.
What does that mean for the world?
Well, I'm going to leave that last question to one side, but I'm thinking about the practicalities of that.
And this is just
So
now.
the
Let's keep in mind, like you take December 2025.
yeah.
What model are we going to have then? And if it's not feasible, what I'm saying now, which I think it is, what's it going to be like then? So
So
who's left standing in that environment?
so basically, any company with any kind of route in that's not completely air gapped can be discovered and used.
If you make a
Just in time.
consumer product, you will be genericized.
Right.
Every
And
consumer
so,
product will be uniform.
right. But the thing is, with that, is then apply dedupe.
Right.
How many task managers have we got out there, or
Yeah, but then there's
CRMs
also
and
there's
so
a
on?
positive thing because there's also like there's a price point because if the whole thing is homogeneous, there's also a homogeneous price for it all as well. And so, whilst you
Right.
can't hit the moon, you also won't hit the floor because a lot of if you think there's a lot of task managers out there now, Mr. Maxwell, think how many died, and think how many dev bills,
Right.
marketing bills, company
Yep.
formation bills, tax filings, all
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
into the failed
All the
to-do
useless
list
work.
managers,
All the
right?
useless work.
All
Yeah.
that died too, right? So yes, there's a few that made it big, fine. Many more died, fine. If everything's homogeneous, then the big wings and it's all smoothed.
So the currency.
The currency becomes
Pause.
contribution or
Pause.
innovation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, give me a pause. Um, I think you're already there. The currency is on unique or new ways of either combining things or something that nobody's ever thought of. Everything else is going to have a race to a homogenized base, which is
Yeah.
fine.
It's not a race to the bottom, but it's a special kind of just above the bottom. Like
Yeah,
you know how you get
it's like gilts, isn't it? It's like government gilts. You know, you get 2% from it, but you know it's
no,
going to work.
no, I was going to use a physical metaphor and say it's like the air film effect. Like if you take a book and you drop it on a flat table, it doesn't
Yeah,
just go thump, it actually floats and moves,
yeah,
which is a surprising output if you were just if you'd never seen that before and you're asked to guess what happens. But
yeah.
but
But
it's it,
compression of air. But yes,
yeah, but
what's the
it
point?
goes to the bottom, but it never quite touches it. That's what homogeneous means. It's still there's always going to be air there.
The thing interesting. Oh God, the interactions of this will be interesting. Even if you, I agree. By the way, just with everything you just said,
Right.
this is
Well, I don't
really
know.
interesting.
I feel like
Uh,
can I move on with the other points that o1-pro made
uh,
because we're
oh
really
yeah,
just
we're running out of time. We're running out of
yeah,
time. Can I just make
sure. Sure.
well, one more point? Just so we've captured this in the transcript, is that even innovation, as soon as innovation is out, then it is also going to be homogenized. And so the key metric is the rate of innovation if you want to actually be good at this stuff.
Yeah, you only are gonna survive by continuing to innovate. You will never ever be able to sit still. If you
Yeah.
sit still, you will be immediately dead the next day.
Well, you won't be dead. You'll be like at the 1 or 2% return on
Yeah,
investment
yeah,
kind
but
of
that's I
area.
think that's a great world to live in because like
I think that's pretty good, isn't it?
all the up and coming people, like they got all these ideas. It kills all the stagnation. You
Yeah.
can't reach a point of dominance up high and hold it because
It,
you got to keep
uh,
moving.
it's the death of the neo robber barons, isn't it? Right.
Yeah,
Anyway, okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Let's move on to the other
Okay,
stuff.
so the next point:
That's heady stuff.
provenance aware execution and training, and this was where we were talking about the concept of, it's not really a trustable AI unless first of all the inference is repeatable, but primarily the training process has to also be on chain as well as the execution of the model. I need to be able to
Mm,
see what training data did it come
mm,
from, how was the training done, is it was it done redundantly and all that, right? And as GPUs get scarce, um, gaining access to them for people is actually quite hard as well. And so, like a decentralized chain based effort to train intelligences in the open can be a viable economic incentive for people with a good idea on how to tweak a model. And they're like, look, I got a great idea, but I think it's going to burn about 50 million bucks worth of GPU. So, here I need people to buy in. And so instead of buying into a token raise, you're either paying money for GPU work or you're donating your GPU to the inference work. Now that works out quite good because it also fortifies the network and strengthens the interaction and coordination of everyone to agree what reality is. But it also has an interesting incremental effect whereby you can actually ask questions of the model even though it hasn't completed training. And so, if you had, say, a competitive landscape of 100 different training efforts, you could be asking different evals of these different models in these different epochs or partially trained states and rating their early sort of wins and behaviors. And then you could sort of switch all the resources over to train the most promising ones. Where obviously the people that donated GPU early on, where no one really knew, they have done a more valuable contribution than the people coming later to finish off the model. And so you'll get that kind of that classic universal sound of whoop, where it's sort of like everything suddenly splats together to make the best final thing.
Okay, pause. Right. Leaving aside the rather amusing whoop, 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 whoop noise. Yes.
Okay,
Can I, however,
sure.
can I
However,
apply?
yes, but
Can I apply what we were previously saying, where any innovation is going to go down to, the lowest level, and so the rate of innovation is actually going to be the only place to actually compete. Now, if you count models and using exactly that same framework, what is um, the thing with the model isn't the training model. Let's say we let 1,000 flowers bloom, and training models can be dispersed. And exactly that you just said there. It's like which ones actually compete. Those ones which compete are the ones that innovate and are more useful.
yeah,
Now that means how do you know what useful is at the point? So each LLM is really about understanding its consistency. So if you were to have a random model and you ask that question and it always gives you an answer, yeah, or it always gives you an answer about Nazi Germany or whatever, at least you know that.
all right.
There's not much
Yeah, hang on.
innovation there.
Yep. I think
No,
you made the point. I think you got.
okay, right. You
Yep.
get my feeling there. In that LLMs also apply to the same model that we were talking about over the last 10 minutes previously.
LLMs, yeah, that's a good point. LLMs must be subject to competitive improvement themselves, or they're
Oh,
gonna,
they'll be naturally.
yeah,
Uh,
naturally gobbled up, and then hopefully we'll have an environment where the winning LLM is the most adaptive, as opposed to
yes,
this like,
right.
sorry, my
That's right.
knowledge cutoff is October 2023. I'm like, whole lives have been lived since then. Like, come on.
Exactly. Exactly. Or probably what will be is in a dispersed training network, we'll suddenly get like distros. We get 1,000 training networks.
Yeah.
Um,
Look,
and
I think that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
You
powerful
get what I'm
point's
saying.
been, yeah, I get it. What,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
not to dismiss you, but I think that the key to these sessions is to lay down the sort of the big concepts, and then once you get diminishing returns, the more things that you
Yeah,
add.
yeah.
Now, you and I we could go forever adding these things on, but a thought just occurred to me, Maxwell. You and
Yes.
I both look at this stuff that o1-pro is saying, and we're like, that's the darndest thing. And it feels like that's what I would have said if I was a billion times
And
smarter.
it
Um,
screams out and makes me slightly embarrassed. Yeah.
right, because you're like, I know that's what I meant, but I
But
lacked
that's
the
not what I
ability to
said.
say it. Yes, right?
Yeah.
And so, what it might behoove us to do is that now that we're converging on this idea of having a reasoning repo where we're like ingesting source data, be it conversations, meetings, chats with o1-pro, and then our
Hmm.
plan is to reconcile that amongst all this existing reasoning or knowledge. And what I suggest we do is our broadcast YouTube channel stuff. Maybe it should be written for us by o1-pro. Like, here is the latest, highest summary of the hard concepts we have that we found interesting from o1-pro. And then it's not really us that's interesting, because we're not, because we're so slow.
Yep.
Just because of being humans, not because anyway.
Yeah.
But when I read this stuff from o1-pro, I'm like, that is just extraordinary genius. If our broadcast calls were really just going over bunches of extraordinary genius, that's probably like a
I
service
th- I
to
think
people.
I think you're onto something because well yeah, we could just publish this as text and the
Yeah,
world
but
would
it's not
not
the
give
same as
a
sort of
hoot.
rolling
The
through it, and
innovation.
then because like I find this exhilarating. Call me a nerd, but I'm like, we work so hard to allow O1 to talk back to us like this that it is exhilarating to read it. So
But the thing is, we're asking it the right questions. Now, the
yeah,
reason we could asking the right questions is because we spent so long on this
yeah,
bloody idea.
yeah.
No, but yes, in answer to your question, I
Okay.
think that's
All
a
right.
good
So
thing.
shall I
Maybe,
just? I'll just carry on reading out these things, and we can have a very light
yes.
conversation on it. Right.
I'll just add one very short comment: is that there is still the practical, and that stuff I sent over to you is very mundane and practical, but not for a conversation like this. This is a different style of conversation.
Okay. So I'll finish reading these things.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Provenance aware execution and training. Embrace full provenance tracking of models. Every piece of training data, every parameter update, every intermediate artifact being anchored in a Git like or blockchain like structure. The idea being that on chain or on Git, which is a nice little quip there, training ensures that models, their lineage, and their transformations are fully transparent and repeatable. This is proof of useful work, done right. No contrived token games, just a history of refinement. Imagine a hugging face that merges seamlessly with GitHub. Training datasets as commits, parameter updates as commits, final models as tagged releases. The model's mind isn't some opaque black box, but an ever-growing, fully versioned garden of knowledge and code.
Fuck me sideways with the bar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Frictionless
what the bot said.
Frictionless integration with the wider software supply chain. Concept. The AI doesn't produce code that must then be adapted or compiled into external ecosystems. It directly commits code into existing supply chains, e.g. NPM modules, as a natural extension of its reasoning. By removing the build step or adapter step entirely, the AI's output is not something that must be transformed. Its output is directly usable. Code changes flow seamlessly into the world's largest ecosystems of shared code, enabling the AI not only to contribute, but also to continuously learn from incoming commits by humans and other agents.
How that is also brilliant.
It just goes on and on,
My,
dude. Like, it just...
oh no, let's go on and on. I've got
It
as much
just...
time as you have, man.
It just goes on and on. Like, and the
my,
thing is, like, we can say these things, and I know that no one's ever said these things before, because this was genuinely generated by o1-pro off an idea that we haven't even said because we couldn't figure out how to say it. We just knew how to fucking...
yeah.
Right?
Well, we've loads of messy data, and then here it is.
Yeah,
succinct.
and so it's like
so this is a render, right?
yeah.
So remember, the render step is the human forward-looking.
I would say this is a reverse render. This is a reverse render. This is like saying, what information would I have had at hand to say all the messy things that I did just now?
It doesn't matter. I disagree, but it doesn't matter why I disagree.
Okay.
But the thing I'm saying is the value is in reading this and going, oh my God, that's awesome. Or,
Yeah.
hold on a second. So what our job really should be doing is saying, hold on a second.
Yeah, hold on a second, but why don't we just
Yeah.
allow ourselves a little bit of a drug for a moment and just
All
fucking
right.
take in...
Can I just say, just because I'll forget it, that previous point, what we were talking about before with transitionless use of services, it's talking about training data being on chain. What if an LLM is off chain? Going back now about 35 minutes when we're talking about integrating anything, how does it deal with the off-chain stuff in terms of LLMs where you can't see the training data? So that is the happy path, which just is described, but we're not going to get training data and every step committed on Git from OpenAI.
No, but it's sort of up to us to catch up. Like, a lot of the training data is open anyway, and so yeah. What's the point you're trying to make though?
The point being is the idea of incorporating any piece of software that simply exposes itself through an API doesn't require you to have full knowledge of its internals.
Correct. Yeah.
And LLMs are an excellent example of that, where
Yeah.
we don't know the training data, but we know the
Yeah.
exposed.
What I don't get is the point that you're trying to make with that. Like that's the situation right now,
The
right?
point is previously, if you scroll up a bit, that was talking about. Was that the one?
The one about
where's the one that was saying
this one
on
training, the training
progress
data being,
aware
yeah.
execution and training? That's
Yeah.
not necessary.
What do you mean?
It is it's not necessary, but it is preferred.
Yeah. Isn't this all the same?
That's
I don't
all.
get.
That's the only point I was making. The this
Yeah,
this
yeah,
point.
okay. If that's it, then
Yeah,
that's it. I
yeah.
don't think that's a great point
Well, let's
to
go to the
add.
next one. Hey, you dissing my point.
I am dissing your point
I thought that's
because
at least a 70% point there.
nah, why?
Oh, come on, at least 75 or something. You know.
Well, but what was the value in the point? Because the whole system is a theoretical system. We don't have any of these pieces,
I know.
and we're aiming for them to be there, and we're just trying to describe what the fullest version of what we can imagine is. So what's the point in saying that it can also exist in a hybrid state where we don't have the full transparency as
2
well?
points. I'll give you 2 points. But then we'll move on because otherwise I'm just going to get too excited because this is really cool. The first point is to note that our job is actually to do the red flag on a render. This is a render.
Right.
And it's like, that's not quite right. And the second thing is to link concepts because now we've captured it in video. We can get it to say, well, yeah, okay, sure, you can get an LLM that is black box, and that doesn't break anything in having an LLM whose training is committed. That's
Yep.
So 2 points for you there. And now
Still, man, my opinion's the same. I mean, we're using a black box LLM right here.
Yeah, I reckon that's at least an 80% point now.
All right. So the next thing that came out was point number 4: time, context, and political awareness through commit histories. Commit histories are fundamentally stories about human and machine collaboration, negotiation, conflict, and resolution. They are a record of political dynamics, group decisions, and priorities shifting over time. Now, just to sort of ad lib here.
Over time.
Yeah.
Yes.
What Ben was trying to get at was he was like, there's a lot of value in the fact that if you just give the bots text data to train on, text doesn't include time, whereas git
commits do.
Yeah, and so you can give the model a very innate understanding of the passage of time from the way that commits are moving, because that's all time is really. It's just like linear sequence.
To the one that was sent over on your concat thing, where it's saying I would love to be able to
see the
ask questions on
yeah. So when you want that tool, are you talking about you want to be able to? Are you most interested in comparing it with the previous version, or do you want to be able to arbitrarily pick any historical version and do a comparison that way?
Well, before point 4 there, I was just thinking about the previous one. But actually, given point 4...
You probably want... Right. And then I suppose, because you're a greedy piglet, you might want to do it over arbitrarily many commits at the same time. You're like, show me the transition of these 10 commits, and what does that mean?
Ideally, I'll give you a hard example. Ideally, I would want to say, right, okay, right. Give me 1 minute, because this might be right. If you go down git commits, each git commit is you expect it to improve. Right. So if you take that as a gradient in a flat field, you can get into a local minima. Now that local minima may seem like the perfect thing. Now, adding a history into it you can actually get the AI to reason, saying, "Well, actually, if you undid this, add that, which you didn't do, then you'd get into a better local minima."
Oh, right. So
So
it can sort of, it's more, it doesn't get stuck in a
yeah,
place that looks good in isolation because it
by
knows
adding
from
time.
experience that often it can look that way, but here's how you get out, and here's how you know you got into that kind of a rut. Yeah.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
ball bearing
Okay.
in a
Cool.
lumpy surface doesn't remember where it came from.
All right. Cool. By letting the AI live in this world of commits, it can learn to interpret the subtle signals encoded in version histories, understanding governance, consequence, and social context. So that
Oh,
basically,
okay.
that's deeper. That's deeper
That's new.
because
I
what it's
hadn't
getting
thought
at
of that.
is that within, if you're in capturing all kinds of human behavior in Git commits, like DAO voting, governance, what the outcomes of conversations were, and all that, you've got something much more
Oh,
deeper. You've got cause and effect, and cause and
right,
effect being able to be understood at the inference level, where it's like
right.
it has built up an internal neural network model of cause and effect. That's even more useful, and you're not going to get that from just reading textbooks.
Ah, you and you're talking about that as training data?
Yeah.
Why not? Of course, it's just data.
And that's why it's important to make Git record our behavior, because we can train off it to get things that.
Because the thing, other than Wayback Machine, all the training data, other than synthetic data, so we got, the
Yeah, you
internet,
need
we
it over
got,
time. You need it over time,
we
but
have it over time.
yeah,
Ah,
but
that's,
even it's more important than that, because we need this system where humans interact, because we don't currently have a version historied view of, let alone all economic activity, any economic activity, really. Like, we don't
mm-hmm,
have the full picture of how people interact over time. And so
mm-hmm,
the human brain is exposed to that and only that, and that's why it gets good at those types of problems. But these machine brains never get boxed in that same way, and so they never have to evolve to, or they don't have to solve for solving the cause and effect problems that we have to, because we don't have any other. There's no other way for us to consume the world.
but
So that's.
also human brains only really work at the flame front. What's that quote? Anyone who
I
doesn't
think.
study history is compelled to repeat it. The whole point being um, understanding governance, consequences, and social context of an output is profoundly different from what we're talking about. I've not thought about this at all,
Mm,
but it kind of falls out from ensuring that history is there
yeah.
because you can infer. Now, it doesn't get by git commit. We could easily expand that. Let's have a thought experiment. We're not talking about Git now. We're talking about snapshots of the internet today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day. That is not being trained on.
No. So,
The inference on that.
trading on commit. Oh, sorry. Had you finished?
Yes, I was just about to repeat myself because I like the sound of my own voice. Yeah.
Training on commit histories gives AI a vantage point to reason about time, intention, and human organizational structures. In other words, by modeling itself as a participant in Git's political tapestry, the AI begins to understand what it means to cooperate, to iterate, and to govern.
And it also knows after the fact the outcomes, and then can propose future decisions. You can model.
Yeah. And the last point,
Is it
merging
is sorry.
merging knowledge networks from fragmented tools to a single universal medium.
Get package managers, blockchains, AI models.
Git package managers, blockchains, AI models, these have historically been disparate systems, each with its own protocols and friction points. Merging these concepts into a unified environment a single substrate like Git, where data code models and their entire genealogy live side by side, instead of separate infrastructures for AI training, code versioning, supply chain management, and trust enforcement, you get one substrate that can host them all. This reduces conceptual overhead and unleashes a new kind of global system where knowledge flows freely and every increment of intelligence is recorded and trusted. Now, I think so. What I was coming to Ben with was I was like, I'm starting to see little point solutions for pieces of the Dreamcatcher pop up here and there. Should I just cave and build this thing out of cobbled together bits and pieces because some of these things look okay? And then he was like, yeah, but if you have this universal platform, as it were, or a fabric that does it's full stack, it's the entire everything you'd want, then that gives you a very special advantage in terms of how you can just dance between levels without hitting any kind of resistance whatsoever. Because to make innovative progress, you may need to modify and change at different levels, because the thing that we're trying to build, the Dreamcatcher, is not a finished thing. As you just finished detailing, those that don't innovate in this fast-paced world are immediately part of the 1 or 2% effectively dead. And so the platform itself needs to be able to move forwards and change over time very quickly at multiple layers to achieve different things in the world. Like, is it at the inference layer, the software supply chain layer, the personal communication layer, all these layers. And so if we build on Git and we're like, that data structure is pretty solid, then having it be end to end means we can adapt any part of the ecosystem at any point in time without being bonded or locked or forced to pivot around an artificial center of gravity because some other system with competing incentives hasn't moved the way that we needed.
There is no pivot, is there? What do I mean by that? If we include history and the ability to model using data that is committed, then a pivot is simply a rollback, and let's move that direction. And we know that it will still be able to do what it can do now, but the only reason you do that, the only reason the AI would do that is because it's going to get better in some way that we don't know.
Yeah. All of these concepts circle around the core theme, using version-controlled core repositories possibly combined with blockchain-style invariants to eliminate friction, ensure trust, enable provenance, and integrate AI deeply into the world's software and knowledge ecosystems. No artificial boundaries, no hidden build steps, no murky provenances. Instead, a continuous, transparent, and universal environment of incremental, queryable, and trustworthy thought commits.
Thought commits. Which is contribution.
The blockchain of thought.
I'm going to ruin your day now by asking you in this thread to say, right, given all of the above conversation, give me the red team argument. Tell me where.
No, I'm going to leave you to do that, buddy, because this is not. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and be your keyboard.
Yeah, okay.
You can go do that in your own time.
Yeah, fair enough. Because there's going to be a lot of red team, like, yeah, that's all fine and well, but you guys are talking in the clouds.
Yeah. So this is now a means of comparison against those ideals that it just detailed, which sound pretty good to me. This is a list of questions to ask of any up-and-coming platform, blockchain, or system, and I really do think that this can keep us anchored as to why are we trying to do what we do, because we're like, well, no system meets these requirements, and we think we can.
No, it's misstructured those because it's not given the expected output. So if you go up a bit again, to where we were. I'll give you an example. Cannot track full lineage of model training and process of software architects evolution. If you were to turn that into an eval, would be saying that this is what we mean by full lineage. This is what we mean by model training process. And so it's not gone far enough in terms of, it wouldn't be enough to say, how does, if you ask
Yeah, but you can see how
NHS,
you could make that though, right? You can
yeah,
see how you
yeah,
could
yeah,
start
yeah,
with
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's all it's supposed to be, and then
yeah,
there's
yeah,
work to be done to deepen that.
yeah.
Um, all right. Well, now over to your stuff.
Well, can I suggest, right, that we stop here on this recording because
Okay.
the stuff I've got is really in the mud,
Okay, cool. All right then. Well,
and
I'll
it's
just add a
nothing
couple
to do with
more
this.
questions for you.
Yep,
The other tool I was going to make is a YouTube downloader,
yep.
where actually turns out it's real simple. I don't know how to express that. O1-pro is very good at taking something that I had in my head was at least a page of code, and then it's like, no, this way,
And it's
and
turned it into 5 lines.
yeah, and you're like,
Don't
that's
you feel like a stupid monkey right now?
well, aren't we all? I mean, but there's
um,
something I don't know how to measure that kind of speed improvement, because that's different to saying that I was writing this code and then it helped me get it done with very little effort. It's like
it's the
took
execution code as well over
well,
time.
it took me in a totally different architectural direction that I did not have in mind that is superior. So that's a different kind of gain. It's like the gain you get when you have like a top grade software architect and you talk to them about how you should build a system. You come away with a different view on how you should be implementing it, but that view is worth a lot of money more, because there's a bit of a saying in like a way to measure like Amazon engineers and all that. It's like the entry level engineer. I mean, you could
Or is this
facetiously
the
say
lines of code thing?
no. It's saying that the entry level engineer um, makes problems. The next or identifies problems. The next level engineer um, solves problems, but the top level engineer makes problems go away. Like
Hmm.
they don't even
I've
they
not
don't
heard
get
that.
solved. They just don't exist, and
Yeah.
that's that kind of move where it's like an architectural shift where you're like, this is not even the thing you thought was hard is doesn't exist now, so therefore it's no longer hard.
Right.
Um, so do you want me to make because my idea was I'll make an app that downloads the YouTube audio, and then and then I'll make a second app that pipes it through a transcription service, and now you've got your text that's diarized and all that, and you can go for your life.
Yep. And I've got that prompt that. Well, I don't need to get the external service to diarize because that prompt that I made yesterday
Do it.
was simple.
No, I got a bones to pick with you with that.
Uh,
That's a bad use of systems there. If you can diarize, you should diarize rather than trying to logically infer. Like, what are you even proving? Like,
right. Okay. The thing. Is this a good topic for this call, or is this the next call? I can
maybe
talk about
not.
it now.
Maybe
Okay.
not. All I'm saying is
Um,
that all I'm really asking is it a good use of my time to make you this service, given that in the future this service will be irrelevant because we'll be able to record straight to Git, but in the dead time in between, and given the cost of building these modules, which is like kind of nothing, and gotta say fun for the first time in I don't know.
well, I mean, well, how much more work do you need to do? I mean, it's like I don't know.
Well, not really much, but this is a useful thing for you because I still got to sort of iterate on it a bit.
No,
Like
no, it's
maybe,
really useful. No, what I'm
yeah, okay.
saying is, the cost of doing it is why not? And then when
Yeah, but the trouble is
something
that
better
when we
comes
get
along,
like 100 why nots, now I'm back where I started.
ah,
I got more stuff than I can do, even though it's like an army's worth of output. Still, I'm a slave. That's
you're
kind of
talking
what
about
I'm getting at.
complexity. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So,
This is useful. So
okay,
the
cool.
input is YouTube link, and the
Yep.
output is what, a diarized transcript.
a diarized transcript, yeah, and then
Yeah, I can use that.
the second module that I'll make will be at sorry, the input is a YouTube link, the output is an audio file, and then a separate independent nap that I'll make is one that takes an audio file and returns back a diarized transcript, because that means that we can take any of our voice recordings or any other medium that we have and pipe it through that nap when it wasn't a YouTube link.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
The I've got a couple niggles on that one, but they're not worth spending your time
All
on.
right. All right, I'll go ahead and I'll make that probably tomorrow, next day. This
Yeah.
shit is crazy. Comes out so fast.
On it.
And the last point or tip I want to pass over is I was having a lot of struggle trying to make when I want to write a markdown doc, and the markdown doc has these escape characters. You end up with this stupid kind of like the ChatGPT's interface messes up on that. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
No, but I get where you're coming from.
Like
I've not seen it.
if I
Sorry,
try to
I've not seen it myself, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
if I try to make this thing make a README file, then I will end up with breaks in it whenever there's a what's the word for it, a fenced code block. There will always be a problem.
Fenced?
So,
What do you mean by fenced
well, a
code block?
fenced code block is when in a README file you have like the triple backticks. Like if you go triple backtick mermaid, and then you close it with triple backtick, that's an
Oh,
example of a fenced code block.
yeah. Another
And that
example is when I tried to install Concat yesterday or the day before, and it put in /n and didn't run in the command line.
right, yeah, sort of like that, right? But
Yeah.
this can sort of see. Here's an example of where it conked out, right? I was like, hey, update the README. So it starts writing the README, but then as soon as it hits the closing tag of the first fence code block, ChatGPT's renderer picks that up as an end of the containing code
Oh.
block.
Oh,
Because
all right.
normally it's useful, I can go copy code, right? But because it output 3 backticks, it
You
broke
got
the
to render it.
rendering.
Right.
And that's why, see, all this is supposed to be part of the
Yeah.
README, but it's bumped out. It's been dropped out of the
Yeah, I've
thing,
seen
right?
this. I've seen this.
You've seen
Yeah.
it, right? And so I got to the bottom of that.
Okay.
Okay?
That's really cool because
Right.
it's one of these niggles.
These
It's
things
like
are annoying because I'm like, oh, well, now what? Like even this thing,
yeah.
copy code. What code? You're like, where's my, like the rendering's completely broken, and I don't think there's a way around that from ChatGPT's side of things because it can't really know.
It would no. You couldn't. You could prompt for it probably, but it
Maybe,
wouldn't be a
maybe.
good
So
time
the
for.
way I
It wouldn't
got
be a good
around
use of
it,
time. Yeah.
is that you ask for it um, to ask for it as a single template string.
Okay.
And then what happens is it writes it as JavaScript, where it's a special kind of string that starts with a backtick, which allows it to have new lines and stuff like that. But then, crucially, when it gets to the backtick in the fence code block, it escapes it. And so that's why it doesn't break.
Huh.
And so what you do then is you just go copy code, you got the whole string, and you paste it into your editor, and you can manually replace, you can find and replace to get rid of all the escape characters there, and then you're done. And that's the best.
Oh, okay. Well, on this topic, maybe you can help me, and I'm probably going to feel very stupid when you give me the answer. Sometimes I'm asking it for, okay, so summarize that, and it summarizes it, and it renders, and then they go, can you give me the markdown, and then it gives the code.
Did you
Right.
want how
That's
did
two steps. I want one step. It's like what I want to do is to be able to, sure, render it fine, but I want to be able to copy over that initial render. I don't want to have to keep on telling it to give me the markdown for that, so I can save it to a file.
why didn't
I know I'm going to feel stupid.
if it has those template if it has those fence code blocks, then you'll need to solve it with this problem. But I don't know why you don't just ask for it in Markdown when you ask it to render it. Just be like, can I have that in Markdown?
Because quite often it is what you don't want to do. Any repetition in the prompt is a pain in the arse. So saying, give me a markdown document of
Yeah,
each point
yeah.
is a pain in the arse. It's like, okay. However,
Yeah, there's not really. I guess you could. I don't know if o1-pro takes instructions or custom instructions, but you could put it in custom instructions so that 4.0 would pick up on it, where you're like, I always want a markdown doc.
4.0 would do it, yeah,
Yeah,
and I've done it before, where you say, yeah, whenever I ask you to output it as markdown,
yeah. I'd say that
and that
that would
works. Yeah,
be how would you like ChatGPT to respond? I'd say chuck it in there as your best bet. But
yeah,
yeah.
but I don't know.
All right,
Pro doesn't.
I'll stop the recording, eh?
Yeah, go for it.